On the eve of celebrations marking the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, Reverend Jesse Jackson spoke with Euronews about his memories of August 28, 1963, today's race relations and the future of black political power.
Reverend Jackson, thank you so much for being with us today. Let me start by asking you a personal question. What are your memories of this August 28, 1963? How do you remember that day?
I remember coming here in '63. I just left jail in Greensboro, North Carolina, trying to use public facilities. And there was anxiety and fear and hope. The anxiety was, we make it to Washington and back. The fear was, if you drove a car across state lines with a different tag, something could happen to you. Mayor Edwards had been killed June the 12th, and the stench of his blood was all in the air. D.C. was on the virtual lockdown. The government was saying it could be a riot, and at that time, the mayor of D.C. was appointed. They closed all liquor stores for the first time since Prohibition. They made all police work 18-hour shifts. They mobilized the military in the 5 surrounding military bases. I mean, this place was on the lockdown. And yet, in spite of that, out of that sprouts this beautiful flower of people, black and white, staying together, singing together, being inspired together. And our will to freedom and dignity is greater than the resistance to our getting our freedom and our dignity.
50 years on, what is the state of the American dream that Dr. King had talked about?
The dream was never static. The dream in '64 was the end humiliation. I mean, black soldiers had to sit behind Nazi POWs, prisoners of war. The dream was to end the indignity. We couldn't stop by a hotel or a motel. Couldn't eat at a public restaurant. That was that dream. The dream the next year was for legislation to make that illegal. The dream the next year was for the right to vote. The next year the dream was for open housing. The dream was in a poor people's campaign. It was to end the war in Vietnam. Now we are free, but we're not equal. And social separation has virtually ended as a matter of law, but the disparities have gotten wider.
How are race relations today in the United States? We do have this controversial debate over voter ID laws. We've seen the Trayvon Martin tragedy. We have this debate over stop and frisk and racial profiling in New York City. Is there a danger that America is turning back the clock?
In many ways. Trayvon Martin was killed, unarmed and innocent. 136 blacks were killed last year by some sheriff or some deputy or some vigilante. 136, not just one. 2.5 million Americans in prison. Over 55% African American. We see prison labor on the increase. We see prison telephone bills cost $1.5 billion a year. We see companies on the stock exchange are owning prisons as an industry. We see pretrial detention, people in jail up to 5 years waiting for trial, worse than Guantanamo. So there's an ugliness undercutting our beauty, and there's a real mixed feeling in the country tonight, frankly. On the high note, President Barack wins. He's the crown jewel of our success of 55 years of struggle. On the other hand, he's on the attack. He's been called non-Christian, non-American, not born, all this ugliness. So there's a kind of vile that's challenging the beauty of this moment.
Many people say that race relations are fine because there's a black president in the White House. Was Obama's victory a sign of political normalcy or just an accident of history?
Well, it's historical occurrence, to be sure, because the combination of forces for the good came together and went beyond the ordinary considerations about race first and chose someone who had superior qualifications and was able to articulate those. The vote made us feel good about ourselves, but that was another element that felt very threatened, and they should not have. The South should not feel threatened by our progress. The civil rights has made the New South prosper. I mean, you couldn't have had the investment of Honda, Mitsubishi, Toyota, all the automotive investment in the South, the new professional athletic teams in the South, the Olympics in the South. The New South has been born again because of the civil rights laws. And so the irony is those who benefit the most have become oftentimes the most mean and the most frightened.
Looking beyond Obama, has the African American community in America become more powerful? Do you see more Obamas in the future?
Well, you'll see more women, more people of color who are there dream of running, and they may very well run. When I was running back in '88, President Barack was a student, and he saw the debate. He said to himself, this can be done. So when these seeds are planted, you never know when they're going to sprout, when they're going to grow up. There are qualified women, Latinos, other blacks. There's no shortage of people qualified to be president of the United States. And I think that there's a whole body of people now who can at least dream it. You can dream it, you can make it happen.
And finally, what is your biggest concern today? What keeps you up at night?
Well, I'm perplexed by our proclivity for war, the extreme concentration of wealth, the loss of the middle class because of our trade imbalances, and the growth of poverty. I mean, the poverty growth in our country now is hitting very dangerous proportions. We deserve it. Too much war, too much hate, too much poverty. We, in fact, must dream and live above our present predicament and change our priorities.
Reverend Jackson, fascinating conversation. Thank you very much.